I moved everything outside and put the frame back on the axles, so it's looking good. I've got it narrowed here. I'm 23 inches on the outside of the frame rail, so basically I narrowed this front part so that it's like the T-bucket frame that I built, but I really like just the vintage look that I have with this frame. So I think it's looking good. The new front cross member dropped the front down about 1.5 inches, so I'm happy with that. I think I'm still a little higher than what I want to be, so I think I want to get it down a little bit lower here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop the frame down in the back here, and then I'll end up cutting the frame somewhere in here, and drop the front of the frame down, and then of course I'll have to cut behind the cross member and make sure that cross member is in the right angle. And right now it's not, it's just flat across there, so I think I want to get that to about 10 degrees. So I've got a couple pieces of steel ordered. I'm going to go pick up a little bit later, and that'll give me the steel I need to do the rear. And then I've already bought the 3/16 plate. Once I get things put together here, I am going to go ahead and box the frame with running the flathead V8 in here. And I think I want to make sure that I got a little extra strength in the frame, and everything will be welded together instead of riveted, so I think that'll help a little bit too. So I'm at the next spot in the frame here, so I'm getting ready to put the Z in, or the drop here in the rear. And so what I did is I made 2 of each of these pieces, so these will end up getting welded together like that, and then the rear cross member will fit into this spot. So the way this is going to work, I have marked out the side of the frame here, and that piece will go in like that, and then this piece will come across up top. And the way I have that notched is the cross member will fit into that notch, and then that's going to drop my frame 6 inches. So if I did all my calculation and measuring correct, I'll get a 6-inch drop. So all of these miter cuts I cut on the chop saw over here, and this is one that's got, it's one of the slow speeds with the regular saw blade in it. I really like it. It does a great job. It's a Slugger. I think it's made by Fine, and so that's a newer addition to the shop, and I love that saw. So to cut the angle on the frame, I'm going to do that with an angle grinder and a blue wheel in it. So what I did is I have the same line marked here as on the other side, and I clamp a piece of 3/16 or 1/4 inch, whatever's available, clamp that to the frame, and then I can use that as a fence, and that gives me a really nice straight cut. Make sure when you're cutting that, you're on the right side of the line. So I got the line here, fence here. I want to make sure that I'm cutting on this side. Next step is going to be to remove that rear cross member, and I just have 2 5/16 bolts holding it in place. So I'll get those taken out, and then I'll go ahead and cut those end pieces off, and the video will pick up at that point. Okay, I'm getting ready to weld up my kick-up plates for the back, and I've got everything cleaned up. I went ahead and cut a bevel on each of those pieces, so I've got a nice groove for my weld to go into. And then to my bench top here, I've got a piece of 1-inch thick steel on there. It's nice and square. This actually came off of some type of a setup jig at a place here in town that went out of business. So it works great for stuff like this. The corners are nice and square, so I've got that clamped down, and I'm going to go ahead and get a few tacks in place. So for the tacking, this is 1/8 inch wall. I actually have the welder set to the setting for 3/16. So I'm using it's a Harbor Freight. It's a titanium MiG 170, and I really like this welder. So there I got three nice welds on that, or four nice tacks on there. I guess maybe a little bigger than a tack. But then, as you noticed, after I got that first one in place, I went ahead and checked. Nothing had moved. It's still nice and square along the edges. So I'll go ahead and flip this over. Before I do that, I'll do a little bit of grinding there, flip it over, do it on the other side, and then I'll double check and make sure everything's nice and square. Back side of the piece, so I went ahead and did four more welds there. And before I flipped it over, I went ahead and took the angle grinder and I ground those welds flat. So, one of the nice things you can see with that groove in there, I'm getting real good penetration into the metal, but then also you're able to fill that in with welds. So then that can be ground smooth, and you've got nice weld in there. It's penetrating really well. Here you can see the circle out away from the weld. So that groove being in there, that's a very necessary thing to do, and make sure that you have that. I'm going to go ahead, run a bead across here, and I think now I'm safe. I can go ahead and run that all the way across, and then I'll get the other one done and start getting things ready to weld this to the frame.